14 stages of construction, home building. Well, any construction. But that's today's topic. But firstly, welcome to my humble off-grid homestead in the forest. And I'm in my gathering place. And it got dark all of a sudden. And so I thought with all the windows that are here, this would be a nice bright location. Hasn't happened. We'll see if the clouds move, because that's west, and if it does, then we'll get some light coming through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows. So you're hoping, you're considering building your own construction, home build, whatever. What's involved, how many stages, what comes after what, in what order, how much can you prepare for, how much is out of your hands. But not so much where to go. That's not something that I can help you with. I can just tell you maybe in another video where not to go, maybe. But you already know that. But I'm noticing and seeing more and more people already know answers to many of the questions that they're asking me, but not necessarily listening to either me or themselves. So that's why I think that should be a topic for another video. In the meantime, let's go and discuss the different stages of home construction. So I said I'm not going to tell you where to go, where not to go. We can talk about that another day, but I'm assuming that you already either have your land that you want to build on, or considering it seriously, because it's good to be proactive and find out some beforehand, but things can change quickly, and prices of things can go up, as we saw in the past few years, quickly. So maybe I'll just leave the costs out of this video, because you don't know when you're going to be moving or building or where. So let's assume you already have your land, or let's assume that. So that what I mean is, it's not a problem finding it. You already know where it is. Either you have your deed to your land, or you know where it's going to be. For instance, if I find people that I really like, and are like-minded, respectful, all of those, I would let them share some of my land. So what I mean is, that's already something that they would have. It's not something that someone can email me and say, "Oh, I want to come build on your land for your land sharing project." That's not how it works. But I'm just saying, once we've done all this screening process and you have the land, it's just like once not that you have the land, you have the spot to build on. It's just like when you've bought your own land and you have your deed. So you're past the stage of needing a spot to build on. So the very first stage is, I want to say blueprint, but if you're not going to an architect like we did, with what we wanted and what we needed, a blueprint that we already had of ourselves, just needed adjustments, then you at the very least have to have some kind of a design, have some kind of an idea of, is it going to be a bungalow? Is it going to be a 1.5 story? Is it going to be a 2-story, 2.5 story? Every time I add to it, you understand the cost goes up, right? Okay. You have to know if it's like a ranch style, like a sort of a long, some might be examples of it where you live, sort of a Texas kind of idea. So you draw that and you kind of talk about with your spouse or family, whoever, how many bedrooms you need, how many bathrooms you need, how many bedrooms you need, and what size the kitchen. And again, the more rooms you need, because there are walls that separate them, and the more lumber, the more labor, the more cuts, the more material, screws, nails, whatever, paint, everything. And then you understand again the cost is going higher and higher. I just want you to know that building is not cheap, and I'm not trying to discourage you, but if I sense that I have to tell you these things because there are millions of videos where you're getting this video from that don't tell you the whole story, and I think that could be devastating for some people. Once they get into it, they think they can do it, and then they learn that no, the cost is way more than they expected. In fact, 10 years ago, we were told that whatever you've budgeted for your build, so whatever you figured it would cost, add 25% to it, and that's a more realistic price that you're going to be left with by the end of it. Now, today, 10 years on, arguably you might have to add 50% to whatever you budgeted for. So you see what I mean? And now what the costs are, what the stages, different costs are, is what we're talking about today. So when you have that blueprint, either you pay an architect, which costs a lot, or you go to get one of those apps and do it yourself, or you kind of become. I build whimsical structures, not conventional homes, and I'm neither an architect or an engineer, constructional engineer, so I can't. Neither am I a licensed carpenter, but I can tell you what to stay away from what to go for if you want some whimsical elements at least, and compromises, and that neither an architect or a home builder or a carpenter would tell you, because they only know conventional. Anyway, this video is not about me plugging what I do. I'm just trying to tell you that you can go a conventional way, or have an option of not going conventional way all the way, or halfway even. So you have you have your land, you have your blueprints. Third stage is called ground prep. Ground prep is when you have, let's just say here, if you're able to see through that window, you'll see a forest. Well, you can't build a house there. You can't even build a tiny house there. The rule of thumb is, in my opinion, in my experience, is that your house should be on a clearing, on a flat, away from trees, such that if a tall tree, what's a tall tree? 80 feet or taller, falls down by wind or storm or whatever, it won't hit your house. Because imagine you go through this entire thing to build your house, a costly thing, timely thing, stressful thing, and it only takes one tree to fall on it. That's why when I see these survival shows and camp shows and or bushcraft shows or whatever, I see people building their either emergency shelter or building a house or a cabin or whatever right in the middle of the forest. And you know what, folks, a lot of times you don't need someone to tell you. I suppose you do, but if you're I didn't have that intelligence, so you don't think that I'm judging. If I were to watch a show like that, I'd say, oh my God, that's beautiful, I'm so whimsical, I'm encased in the forest with trees are only just a hand reach away from my house. That's a disaster on many levels. If there's a forest fire, not where we live, but in many places have forest fires, this is all fuel. Trees are wood. And once that fire starts, this is all fuel for it. If a tree falls, now you have two houses, two half houses, but you have two houses. You need air movement, so you don't get mold growing. You need sunlight to come in. It doesn't matter if you're if you're using solar or not, or you're just using some lanterns here and there. Otherwise, go live in a yurt if you don't care about light coming in. They don't have any windows. So say your house is in this forest, I'm not sure if you can see it, but so you have to clear as much as clear, so that, and then you look at the tallest tree and see how far it is falling distance from your house, from the center of that circle. And if it looks like it can hit your house, you got to bring that tree down. Now, I'm a tree hugger. I wouldn't bring any trees down, any live standing trees down if I didn't have to. But if it comes to between losing a house and all that effort, time, money, and a tree, I will bring that tree down any day. And now, once that tree's down, it's not a waste of a living tree. You can do so much with that one tree. Firewood, you can make, cut it into boards, however thick you want them, to use as your, however thick, however wide, to turn them into your floorboards, cabinetry, or, this you can see, I'm sure. This is what they call a 6x6. It's 6 inches on each side. They could be 4x4s. Let me see if there's a 4x4 here. Well, you get the idea. 4 inches. This is about 4 inches. 4 inches by 4 inches by 4 inches by 4. It could be 2x4s. It could be 2x6s. You can do so much with it. And here I made stools, log stools. There's a video on all the stuff that I've made that you can do. So it's not a waste of tree by any means. And whatever branches, they can compost back into the earth and become soil for you. So now you've cleared your land and you've done your site prep. What comes after that? You're not done with that. We're not at the foundation stage yet. We're still talking about ground prep, site prep. So you've cleared the trees from all around your house. And really, honestly, if you're going to be having any kind of a garden, you would probably have to go another 100 feet of clearing distance around your house. Maybe not necessarily on the north side, because you're not going to be growing anything on the north side, but on the other 3 sides you might want to. So it's okay. Don't worry. It's not. Don't you look at these pictures on social media? It's a little cabin in the woods, and that's just for people that are like weekend warriors. You go over there for a night or two and you go home. You charge your batteries. You're in the forest. You enjoy it. That's not where you live. That's not where anyone lives. That's not where anyone should live. You get depressed. You can't see anything. You can't see anyone coming. There's so many reasons to have a good clearing around. The reason why you see all these trees around here is because this is not a living space. This is for entertainment, for yoga, for meditation, for mindfulness, for crafting, for intimate weddings. Do you know what I mean? No one's going to be living here. So, after that, you're going to have to get some gravel. Some gravel isn't 2 bags of gravel. I'm talking, depending on the size of your house, if you're building a house the size of this, and this is about 480 square feet, I don't remember exactly because it was 7 years ago, but I'm pretty sure we used at least 3 dump trucks, at minimum 3 dump trucks, loads of gravel here. And then you either have to get the excavator or one of those big, they're not steamrollers, but they're rollers that they come in and drive back and forth, and they're very heavy. All they do is just they go very slow, they go back and forth on your gravel pad to make it settle and go into the ground to stiffen it so there's no movement. Once you build a house, it doesn't go wonky on you, it doesn't shift, doesn't settle. You've already done all that. How much does a load of gravel cost? It depends on, where you live. Just like how much does land cost? How much does what does it cost for an excavator? Well, it depends on where you live. I can tell you the numbers of where here in Canada, in New Brunswick, Canada, and my numbers would be 7, 8 to 9 years old. It doesn't necessarily even mean anything, but you can ask me in the comments if you're really interested to get a very ballpark number, and I'll tell you. I don't have any reason not to. And so then once that gravel's done, now if you're really, and I don't recommend that, really rustic, really rustic, and again I really don't recommend it because I don't really know anyone that's done it, and whoever's done it has regretted it. You build on top of that, you're done. Again, I don't recommend it. The other option is what they call frost walls. So you build a concrete, you build a concrete wall all around that footprint. Footprint is where the size of your house is, the exterior walls are. You build this concrete wall and you put your house on it. So the middle of it is nothing. It's empty. It's just your gravel, like I said. But you're not building on gravel. That's like an empty, dead air space that you got to either put insulation or weather stripping. It's another name for it. It's like a plastic sheet that so then the air for the or either on the bottom of the floor or on the ground itself. Now, I think one of the better ways is if you pour concrete slab like we used here at our main building. So you pour that concrete slab, and especially where we live, New Brunswick, where we are, is very ledgy, very almost like we're on bedrock, so that it's not going to be any shifting or movement, as opposed to where the places that have clay foundation, so it will shrink and crack and shift. Or if they have sand or rocky, but on where we are now, pretty much bedrock is, if you know what bedrock is, it's solid. In fact, it's so solid that we couldn't dig it for a basement or anything. We had to build from ground up. So maybe one day I'll show you, direct you in the opposite direction of the camera. So we went up 3 feet. We filled it with 3 feet of gravel. Now, when I told you 3 dump truck loads for this foundation, for that foundation, we used something like 10 or 15 loads of gravel. And then the roller, we didn't, no expense was spared because it was usually one kick at the can. We had to get it right. You've heard there's so many movies, so many books, so many memes, so many proverbs about foundations. You gotta get the foundation right. Now, I know that no one I've talked to would say this to me, that foundation, don't pay any money for foundation. No one I know wants to pay any money for foundation or insulation. Why? Because they're not sexy. No one knows. So we spent $20,000 on insulation of the house. No one knows. I say that no one knows or cares, because it's not like you can have friends or relatives come to your house and you say, even if your interior walls are made out of glass and you can totally see your insulation behind it. I'm like, okay, so what? What about it? So you have insulation in there. Same thing for your foundation. We spent a lot of money on foundation. We even put in-ground radiant floor heating, but no one can see it. No one cares. Now, you go and ask anyone, how much would you spend on a kitchen renovation or a bathroom? They'll spend tens of thousands of dollars. Why? Because you can show it off. It's sexy. Look at my granite this and the ceiling of that and the lighting of whatever. Do you know what I mean? So but you do have to spend that money. I'm sorry to tell you, if you don't, you'll pay for it one way or another. Either you do it right the first time, or anyway. So now you've got your gravel pad. Now you've built your either concrete frost wall around with a hollow middle, or you've poured a concrete slab. Now, for those who want to do a basement, that's almost like I can do a whole other video on that. Basements, folks, find out how much rain you get where you live, and find out what kind of soil you have. Basements are perfect for dry areas, desert-like areas like California. No, yeah, California, and some parts of in Canada, interior of BC, where it's semi-arid, not the coast, where you get 60 days of rain in a row. I'm exaggerating, but it's something like 26 days of rain in a row. Not in Ontario, not somewhere where the ground is like maybe clay, so it holds the water, and water by nature wants to find a low point, wants to move, wants to flow. And if clay is hard and it's compacted and it can't go into the clay at all or anymore, well, it's going to find its way through your basement. And if you've spent $50,000 on your basement and it gets flooded because you're below the ground level for your flushing or for your I'm guessing you're going to go with septic. We'll come to that. To flush the water away, you have to bring the water up and then out of your house. So don't do basements unless you live somewhere like here, where you're on ledge, you're on bedrock. Basically, it's very difficult to do basements where we are now, because it's like you can maybe use dynamite, but I mean you would really have to go and do with an excavator. Excavator, if you don't know what it is, it's like a gigantic machine that's got claws like that, and it's articulating, and it goes and digs. It's got like claws, like really long, and they go and then they can almost like be like a jackhammer. Go in there and grab it and bring it out. Soil, rocks, whatever. Now, if that thing can't dig, you're not going to have a basement, because that means just dynamite. It's the only way to have a basement there. But if it can scoop it out with its scoop or a bucket or whatever, if it can do it, then you can go down, and you can be sure that you're not going to necessarily have a flooded basement because it's so ledgy all around you. But I personally, basements I would rather go up so high that when I walk in, it's almost like I'm walking into a basement. So it's not ground level, but maybe a step or two below ground, not a staircase going down. And then you build up. But really, basements can be damp, even in driest places. Basements can be, kind of depressing because of the windows. So why not spend that money and go out? Make your footprint bigger. It will probably cost you the same as going with a basement, but then that way you can have it on the north side. You can have your sort of a cold preserve room, or cold room for your root vegetables and that, and no windows there. Or you can maybe put your fridge there. You can put your renewables, charge controller, all those things there, because they prefer to be cooler and they make noise when the fan is on. Your battery, that kind of thing, can go all over there. And use other spaces for utility rooms. You've done your foundation. That's whatever you decided to go with. I like hempcrete, but that's not available to us here. Even 10 years ago, we wanted to do it, and it wasn't available, and it's still not available. But if you can't get hempcrete, then concrete. Now you've got your slab, and you've got your foundation, all that. Now, you might think the next step is actually, I may have even, yeah, no, I skipped a stage, and that is your septic. Now, one reason why I kind of skipped it is that some people think that they can bucket their poop to the woods and dump it there and save 20, 30, 40, $100,000 in septic. And the novelty, folks, runs out. I know people that have done that, and they come in with all their romantic ideas. I'm not going to hurt the earth. I'm not going to dig the ground. I'm not going to have a septic. And after like 6 months of carrying their waste into the woods, especially in the winter, and that bucket gets filled pretty quickly, and it's not so much the poop that makes noise, it's urine makes noise. Poop makes noise. It's not your poop that stinks. It's urine, because in it there's the uric acid, and there's well, I mean, you could use it as fertilizer, because that's what nitrogen is. If you dilute your pee 20-1, I believe it is, then it's a fertilizer. And especially like us, if you don't use drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, or you take vitamins, all that stuff. So that's actually a good thing. Dilute it 20-1. You can give it to your plants or whatever almost immediately, because it's diluted. It's not hot anymore. It's not going to burn them. But still, in the winter, there's no such thing. You have to take it out, and then when there's snow, you're not going to do it right outside your house, so you have to go some distance into the woods. Don't do it. So if you're not going to bucket it, then before you pour your concrete, your plumber has to come and dig down 4 feet for the frost level, because any less than 4 feet, those pipes can freeze, and your plumbing can get back into your house. And you don't want that. You don't want your waste coming back into your house. You want it to constantly go out to the septic tank, and from the septic tank to the septic field. And that's the other thing. You don't just need 2 septic tanks, depending on what size, but you also need a field past it. And the reason why doing septic costs so much, upwards of $10,000 to $100,000, so you can budget for that. And this, well, it depends on where you live too. They also do a septic field, so they bring many layers of sand. Sand costs a lot more than gravel, and then they finish it with gravel on top. So when the septic tank gets filled up, and there's like a pipe that pipes it out, solids remain at the bottom, the liquid goes out. And I say liquid because it's not just your pee, because you wash your hands, you do your laundry, you shower, you know what I mean? And even when you flush your toilet, most of that's water. It's not like it's pee. So this liquid has to go through it, and it goes into the field, and then it just leaches down and filters down. And that has to be at the opposite end of your well, where you drill your well, for obvious reasons. So while we're on the subject of wells, I know people that have drilled a well and just left a pump on it, which is not a bad idea, but these people don't have plumbings in their house. If you want plumbing in your house, you have to do that. Your plumber, when your plumber comes to do your septic tank, will do a plumbing that goes the opposite direction of your septic tank, into wherever you're going to be, close to wherever you're going to be doing your well, drilling your well, because it also has to be 4 feet deep. So those are 2 things that you should also consider. I would strongly recommend that you do drilling a well instead of just looking for some stream or something, or because see, when you go down to an aquifer, all the water from wherever is you've seen some videos on how you can filter dirty water to potable drinking water. Well, that's what the ground does naturally. So when it rains or whatever, it goes down, filters down to the aquifer. An aquifer isn't 2, 3, 10, 20 feet below where you're walking. In this case, in our case, it was 185 feet. We went down, to be fair, we went down deeper than we were supposed to, just in case. 185 feet. 185 feet. How can I tell you what 185 feet is? Think about a tall tree, that one of the tallest trees that you've seen in your neighborhood, double that, and that's how deep it is. That's pretty deep. And that's another cost. 10 years ago, it was $4,000. Today, a neighbor did hers, but she went down almost 300 feet, and I think it was 10,000. So it's more than doubled. So anyway, something to consider. I think did I get that figure right? Anyway, so now you have your plumbing. Your plumber's done your plumbing for your septic. Your plumber's done your plumbing for your water. Your concrete has been poured. Now it's the stage where you get the carpenters to come in and to frame your house. Now, like I said, there are many ways that you can build your house, but most of them, with the exception of, and I'm not 100% sure. I think even cob, that's where you use like logs. You may have seen this. So there's like first you need even for this you need a foundation of rocks or whatever, and then you line your logs like that, and they all have to be not almost, but I would recommend them to be exactly the same length. And then you put clay or concrete or whatever, probably clay, and then the next layer, and then the next layer, and then the next layer of these guys, and then clay or whatever, and you build it up, and that becomes one wall. But I'm thinking that even those constructions probably need some framing. Framing is all these upright posts and 2x4s and 2x6s. That's what the framing is. So it's like a shell, and then in between them you can put your cob or whatever. So your carpenters framers come and frame your house, and the cost of them, depends on again where you live. You could be paying $85 an hour for a master framer, and they're harder to find because master anything is hard to find, and people that look for master anything don't particularly mind or are short of cash to pay them the $85 an hour. If you can't find them, then there are people that are master carpenters. Are usually folks, pretty much anyone, any tradesperson, if they're between 30s and 40s. So say from 30 to 45, and that's when these folks are at the peak of their trade. They can visualize everything. They know exactly the next step. They know what they're going. There's no standing around trying to figure out. Look, they can see everything. They know how to do it. Then there's no wasting of time. They charge you a lot more for that, but they don't waste any time. They know when to call for whatever they need to have, whatever material they need to have it brought. There's no delay. Now, if you can't find those guys, then you have to go to the next step down, which are folks that charge, say, like I'm just guessing, $45 an hour, or sorry, $65 an hour. So about $20 an hour less. So they're not bad. They're more or less, they've been working for maybe 10 years or so. So they know a lot still, but they haven't seen enough. They haven't seen everything to say, oh, yeah, no problem, I can do this. Okay, they still have to look at it and maybe scratch their head and say, okay, if I, and then you start doing something, you start planning it and working. You say, oh, I made a mistake. I don't think we can do this in your case because I thought it was. Then you have to, if you can't find them, then you just go down to the next guy, which is $45 an hour. Now those are more like handymen or people that have done a lot, but they're not licensed. They're not, they're not. They've done a lot of carpentry, but they're not licensed. They're not. Their job isn't, you have to understand that you're getting someone for half the price. You're going to get the work that a half price guy can do. You just with anything else, just understand that that's what it is. You can't be mad at that guy for when the things go wrong. And then there are people like me who are not. I'm not a carpenter or anything like that. I'm like, if anything, I'm a carpenter helper. I am very good at seeing next stages, but I can't visualize anything. I can't picture it. I build as I go. That's why I build whimsical things. I use what I have, kind of thing. So budget for that too. Now you might think that you can do it yourself, either DIY or you've built stuff you can do, but that's something that, I mean, you have to have helped someone to do it. Even if it's a log cabin that someone building it looks easy, that the work that they're doing, it's not their first home. Nobody shoots their first home and puts it online for other people to see. There's so many. I work with carpenters that make so many wrong cuts, nail so many wrong things. Now you have to get pry bar, damage the wood, damage the nail. You can't reuse it. Nails everywhere. Nails cost a lot of money. That's not part of their fee. Their fee is just their hourly wage. And if you're lucky, their tools. If it breaks, they might charge you. If the saw needs replacing, the blades, they might charge you. If the drill bits need to be charged, they'll charge you. They'll probably just not charge you for the drills, drivers, maybe saws, the actual machine, or maybe a generator. But it's all you. That's the cost you have to do. And if you're building it yourself, obviously it's all you. You gotta either buy it or rent it. You rent it, you don't know how sharp the saw is, how old it is, how long they've left it outside. Was it in the sun? Was it in the rain? Was it rusted? The motor is going to give in, and you've gone over there, rented it, brought it home, plugged it in, and if it doesn't work for whatever reason, or not, it doesn't work for long, you have to take time out to go back and bring it. And construction season might be very short where you live, like here. You don't have time to mess around. You see, when someone's asking you for whatever amount of money, it comes with a certain guarantee that they're going to get expectations from you. Whereas if when you do it yourself and you rent tools or whatever, even when you buy tools, you may not have the same money as a carpenter does to buy top-of-the-line tools. You might not, either you may not have it, or you may not want to spend the money for the top-of-the-line tools. And so you go and buy whatever tool that's mid-range, and then if it's not made to be constructing a house with, so it may not, your motor might not last. So what do? You spend hundreds, maybe thousands on tools, or you hire someone that comes with tools, but he's charging you that much an hour. This is what I mean when I say you pay. You're going to pay. You pay this way or that way. Same as your land. I know people here in my neighborhood that have bought lands purely by price alone, based on nothing else but the price. So they might, you mean, just like where you live now, wherever you live, whatever city or town you live now. Actually, I'll give you an example. This is funny. When we lived in London, there was a street that was fairly straight, because London's fairly flat, and it changed names 3 times. There was no turns, there was not even a winding necessarily, it was just like fairly flat, and it changed names 3 times. When we moved there, we were like, how is that possible that the same street has 3 names? As we were driving, when we were just wondering about that, we noticed that we were going through some mansion-like stately homes that had a bit more land. I'm not talking like acreage, I'm talking like quarter of an acre, right? And then you're on the same road now, you come to a red light, and then you look and you see, what happened? The house is so much smaller now. And you look around and say, all the houses look so much smaller than just like a minute ago on the same road. And that's odd. You drive, within another 5 minutes, the houses are yet smaller. Not just that, now you've entered like a blue-collar neighborhood. The run-down, maybe kids' toys scattered on the lawn, and lawns are small. The cars are old, and rust mobiles, and you know what sort of a lower, less expensive neighborhood looks like. So why do you think? Do you think? Or I know you don't, because you have the same neighborhoods in the city where you live. Not all neighborhoods, and in this case, on the same street, are the same price. So why should that be any different in the country or in the rural? So I know people that have gone and bought land just because it was cheaper there being 2 kilometers away. Only 2 kilometers away. And 2 kilometers away, if you live in the city, that could mean, wow, that's quite a distance. 2 kilometers away is your nearest neighbor, could be your nearest neighbor. I'm exaggerating, it's a little bit farther, but 2 kilometers away is not far when you're talking rural or country. And so they bought, and then only to find out that, oh my God, my neighbor's too noisy, and they have the dogs keep barking, or this land that I bought, half of it is wetland. I can't do anything with it. Wetlands are very important, and in many areas, municipalities, townships, whatever, they're protected as they should be. But it's not something you can build on. What do you look at? I said, what is that? I said, that's a bog. I have a bog in my backyard. Half of my land is a bog. Because you didn't want to pay a little bit, 30% more, have drier land, quiet from that neighbor, or closer to your friends, where everyone is, so you can walk in distance to parks or your friends or whatever you want it to be. So, well, I'm going to save 30% by going over there. It's all the same. Land is land is land. Now, when you go to do your search, remember when I said I can tell you where not to buy. When you go to do your search, you will see, in the country or rural, you will see a house, maybe even a farmhouse, that's on 1 to 3 acres. This is usually 90%, 1 to 3 acres. Rarely you see 4 or 5 or 6 or 10, 1 to 3 acres. And you look at this house, you say, wow, this house, someone built this 100 years ago, whatever, and it's only on 1 to 3 acres. That's odd. It's not odd. That's not how it was. That guy owned 100 acres or more when that was a farmhouse. So what happens when someone retires or when someone dies, a farmer dies, the neighboring farmers or a farm corporation goes and buys the property. And then they go and sever the house, the farmhouse, and little bit of land. That's the 1 to 3 acres I was talking about. And then they use the rest of that land, to whatever that they're growing on. Wheat, corn, whatever the potatoes, whatever. And so you still don't really care, and they price it low so they can get rid of it. They don't want it because it costs more in property tax to have a structure on the house. Doesn't matter what it looks like. And in the province of Quebec, it's actually more expensive. It's actually cheaper to buy land that doesn't have any dwellings on it, because when you buy land that has a house on it, there's so many restrictions about that house that the new owner, when the new owner buys it, they have to adhere to a whole new set of laws that the previous owner didn't have because it was grandfathered. You might even have to demolish it, and that costs a lot of money to have it demolished and come taken away. That's why vacant, cleared land costs so much more than land that has like a dilapidated house on, a bulldozed house. So anyway, so people go and, you might have seen, actually go look today, you'll see a house, like a sort of a farmhouse on 1 to 3 acres, and then you drive up, you ask your partner, so let's go have a look at this house. It looks like, I've done a map, satellite map, and I looked at it. It looks like, oh, so nice in the farmlands and the, whatever, rolling hills and quiet. Let's go look at it. You go look at it on a nice day probably, and then you love it. You say, wow, this is so different than where I live now. I'm attached to my neighbors from every direction, all this noise and sound and the lawnmowers and the barking, the dogs and the kids and loud music, people driving their car, boom, boom. Let's buy it. Yeah, they buy it. Come the harvesting season, come the different stages of growth of the whatever the neighbor's growing. Come pesticides, come herbicides, come the harvesters, come. These are all not. They don't just make noise. This is poison that they're putting on, and it's coming to your land. Now, you might have a conscious farmer that might say, "Oh, let's not spray this land so that on a windy day, so it doesn't go onto my neighbor's property, and I feel bad for them." And that's if the farmer is living on the land, not a farm corporation with no houses anywhere for acres and hectares and hectares and hectares, right? They don't know you, they don't care about you, and they're like a faceless corporation to you. So they can spray it on, even on the windy day, you get all the pesticide and it doesn't all go down. Or say you have a farmer who's price conscious. He's paid for this pesticide, so they try to get lower and lower and lower to the ground so they can only spray the crop and not lose any on a windy day. Sometimes it just can't be helped because can you hear the wind? It can't be helped because the farmer might have other things that needs to do. Maybe the animals to tend. By the way, if it's a hog farm, or a cattle farm, dairy farm, chicken farm, poultry farm, they're going to stink. When you drove that day, you may not have noticed because there was no wind, or maybe because they were in between. Maybe the animals had gone to slaughterhouse, there wasn't anything there. Don't assume that that's what you're getting all the time, peace and quiet. You're not. You're going to get a lot of... And if this pesticide going down gets filtered down, now aquifers don't care that this is the property line. This neighbor is spraying their pesticide. I'm just going to stay on his property line, and I'm not going to... Aquifer, down below. The water well that's down there, it can seep into your water, ground level. So, you can't see all this stuff. You've paid your thing, you've moved your house, you've decorated, now you're in love with your new house, and all this happens. Wouldn't that be devastating? Land is not land, is not land, is not land. It's not all the same everywhere. I mean, we don't have anyone within 500 acres or more, or maybe 1,000 acres. In fact, on the north side, we have 200 kilometers of what they call crown land, which is like owned by the government or province or whatever, and it's forested, and it goes all the way to province of Quebec. That's how far we are. What I mean is, there has to be a difference between something like that being completely in the forest when no one, like our neighborhood, that no one sprays, an all organic neighborhood, than when you go to buy a house that's surrounded completely by farmland and conventional farmers. Usually they are conventional farmers because land is so expensive that organic farmers wouldn't be able to buy that much land. Here it's cheaper, but most places land is just at a premium. But so anyway, we're talking about the stages. So they come and do the the framing, the stick framing or whatever, the framing of the house, and after that, after the framing is done, they come in, put like a vapor barrier on the outside and maybe plywood. You might have seen it. And then your siding, whatever you decide to use for your siding. On the inside of the house, you have to do the same thing: insulation in the walls, and then a vapor barrier, and then however whatever you use to close that wall with gypsum, rock, plaster rock, whatever you call them. In our case, wood. Then you have to do. Before you do your flooring, you have to do your cabinetries, and if you have a second floor, then you have to do that. There's the floor joists, then you have to put floor in there so that the guys can walk on it, so they can sometimes call subfloors. So that's not the floor that you see, that's visible. Another layer of flooring goes on top of that. If you're keeping track of the costs, that's 2 floors. I mean, same floor has 2 layers. All right. Then there are windows. You can buy windows used, as we did for some parts of the house. Oh, but these are all used. Or you can buy new. Well, new will cost you more or last you longer. Used will be maybe fogged up inside, and there's a reason why someone's pulled it out, but it would be cheaper. You just have to decide what you can live with. Is this your dream home? Is this something you're going to live in for now? Problem is that exterior wall, your windows, and interior wall. It will be very difficult once you have your siding there to remove your exterior windows out, and then you have to find, by some miracle, if those windows aren't standard size. A new window, when you go to replace it, that fits that exact same spot. Very hard to find. So I say, unless you're building something like this that's not your dream home, you don't care, whatever, buy new windows. Some governments offer you some kind of grant, some maybe no tax or maybe zero interest or whatever, and there might be sales. I don't know, but I say buy new anytime you can. So again, the cost is going up. So we're at the stage where it's weather airtight, watertight. Oh, there's the roof. I recommend metal roof. You can do asphalt, you can do shingle. When I say shingles, I mean usually when I say shingles, most people are thinking cedar, not asphalt shingles. They'll last probably just as long, but it's just that they're healthier and they're better for the environment. I mean, the cost of making them, what material that's gone into it, and then when they deteriorate. If you've seen, sometimes you're walking around your neighborhood, you see little chunks of flat asphalt, like fruit rolled up leathers, and there's like a sandpapery. Well, that's disintegrating. That's all gone into the water you're drinking. It goes down to the sewer, and it goes into the soil. I mean, I can't believe that their governments are allowing all those toxins to be still made. And in the city, nowhere I lived, maybe there was one house in the whole city that had metal roofing. But anyway, metal roofing will last you longer, but it'll cost. Cost is a cost, so account for it. I don't know what to tell you. So you got your windows, you got your roof, you got your walls up, and once you do your cabinetry, I think that's when you're safe to do your final floors, because otherwise people are tracking dirt, mud, it can get scratched. Hardwood's expensive. We have softwood, but still it can get scratched, dented. All of those stained. That's another cost. Flooring is in general. So really write all these down. If you don't know, if you want me to help you, guide you again with all the mistakes that we made, not just in building, but what the lessons we learned. Mistakes, you're gonna make mistakes. No amount of planning is really going to get you ready for a flawless build. I don't know anyone that's done a flawless build. If you don't use, for instance, you can try to ease the pain, but you're gonna pay one way or another. But as much as you can, don't skimp, don't cut corners. Because once you've done that, all that's done, you still have your electrical to do, your electrician to come and wire the house for you. And then if you go renewables like we did, there's a cost, and that's a huge cost too. What you see someone has in renewables is the solar panels. And that is probably the cheapest part of a solar assembly. Wiring costs even more than that. Thick gauge copper wiring. Your charge controller, your inverters, depending on what size of system you have. Your batteries, probably the most expensive part of that. You don't see any of these. Like I said, it's not sexy. It's in a room in the back. No one knows that you spent $20,000 on your solar assembly. Well, they see the solar panels, that's the cheapest thing. So really try to account for all these costs as much as you can, and then once you have it, maybe add another 50% to it. I'm not trying to discourage you from doing this. Like I said, I would even help folks that good, honest, decent folks. And again, this is not, don't start emailing me, say, I want, can you help me? It's not, it doesn't work like that. I mean, there will be a grueling screening process to go through for me to let anyone live on my little piece of land. But those people, if anyone qualifies, when I start that project, if anyone qualifies, they will have trees from here. They will have a, when I say have, I mean not own a piece of land. Have it, it's a share, like you share your toys with someone, kind of share. And it's not theirs, you're just letting them play with it. So it's a little place they can build their log cabin on. I would give them a hand building it. All the wisdom, all the experience, all the mistakes that I've made, I would gladly give them that at no cost. I mean, when I say at no cost, I mean there will be things that I will need that they would have to do, but that's part of that screening. It's understanding that you give more than you take. It's a for everyone. It's a we versus me, and you should anytime you have to understand that before you can enter into any sort of a community. So have I covered everything? I think I have. I didn't talk about woodsheds or any utility buildings or garage or tool shed or workshop or anything like that. I was just talking about your home that you're actually going to be living in. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions or if anything that I missed. I'm human, I miss things, and I'm not even, I'm very imperfect, so, and I don't know everything, and I'd like to hear from you. What would be a better way to do whatever? Let's brainstorm if you want to. I'm always up to hear other people's experiences and wisdoms. I'm not done building or helping other people build. I'd like to know a shortcut if there is one, or an easier way if there is one, than the hardest way. Yeah, well, that's it for today. So, till next time, namaste.